the 18th day of webinar series, which is organized by Directorate of Research, SRM Institute of Science and Technology. So thank you so much for Dr. Purushothaman sir, for Chairman and Managing Director, National Research Development Corporation, Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, Ministry of Science and Technology, for accepting our invitation readily and spending his valuable time with us. Now may I request the Director of Research to introduce the speaker of the today and take over session. I also, good morning to our Vice Chancellor also here. So thank you, sir, for joining with us.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the SRM University, faculty members, student friends, and other participants, I sincerely welcome Dr. H. Purushottam, who totally reformed and reorganized the NRDC. Otherwise, previously we were looking only into the project reports, and whatever is a little bit positive, those things will be taken, and then technology transfer activity was taken care of by that one. Ever since he took over as managing director and chairman, he has transformed that one. The reason being, he has been trained specifically for technology transfer, and then mostly associated with entrepreneurship. He got his BTech degree from chemical engineering, BTech degree in chemical engineering from Andhra University, and he got MTech from IIT Kharagpur, and from Osmania University, again from Andhra, he got his PhD. He is with 35 years of experience and service across innovation value chain and working at different government institutions of repute. He served as director in Nikko Corporation, Andaman Fisheries Limited, Shilpi Aquaculture, and investment committee member in UTI, India Ascent Venture Fund, Gujarat Venture Fund Limited, and he is also associated with several committees of the government bodies like the Department of Science and Technology, DSIR, MHRD, TIFAC, Technology Development Board, CSIR, promoting innovations, because this is a very typical word. Previously, we were only concentrating only on knowledge and skill. All of a sudden, this creativity, innovation, and technology transfer for the social cause. These three components were introduced to us after the globalization, and he has been trained in the Venture Capital Institute, Washington, D.C., and Venture Capital Funding, National Business Incubation Association, and Technology Business Incubators. And then he was also associated with Academic Staff College of India, mostly for the management of R&D systems. His core competency include multidisciplinary R&D, process development, scale-up, IPR management, technology transfer, techno-economic feasibility analysis, incubation, entrepreneurship, startup, consultancy, venture funding, industrial R&D project reviews and monitoring. And he is the key person for the recent developments in Make in India and startup. These two things are his brainchild. And let us hear from him what our youngsters can imbibe from his presentation and how we are going to transform Indian research, R&D, and entrepreneurship after this corona. Thank you, sir. I sincerely welcome you, and please, we hand over the floor to you, sir, now.
Thank you. Good morning to Tata Narasinghe Rao, sir. So thank you for joining with us, sir. Thank you. Can you please unmute him, Sukhjit? Okay. Yeah, good morning, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for bringing sir to our.
Thank you.
Thank
Good morning. Good morning, Tata.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Great, great. You are the catalyst.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. I feel you are at my home. Yeah.
How do I share my presentation?
కింద షేర్ అని ఉంటుంది చూడండి, నీచే గ్రీన్ బటన్ షేర్ స్క్రీన్. Yeah.
Then
just then it will ask for the file, I think. That's all. Click on that. Put it in this mode, presentation mode. Kendana. Yes. That's all done.
Vachinda?
Ah,
You're able to see?
we are able to see you with full suit.
We are a marketing people. We have to market first ourselves.
Sure, of course.
Thank you, sir.
Anyway, at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Tata for connecting me to SRM. And also at the outset, I would like to thank Professor Napoleon, Professor Ramaswamy for their kind remarks, and the Honorable Vice Chancellor of SRM. Really a wonderful time for me, because in the COVID, we don't have much work in the office. We have to keep ourselves engaged. So this is a wonderful opportunity in that perspective to share some of our thoughts on this very important topic. And really, I compliment SRM University for taking such a wonderful initiative.
Sure. Yeah.
Series of lectures, and to keep all the faculty, researchers, students engaged in the COVID period. It is very, very important. Otherwise, we are all under tremendous stress and a lot of other issues. So this really keeps us intellectually stimulating and very useful in getting connected with all our stakeholders, getting connected with all our peers, getting connected with all our students, researchers. Is a wonderful initiative. Always, of course, SRM is always in the forefront in the education. They always innovate. I have great respects for SRM and the team at SRM. It is a wonderful event. No, education is such a powerful weapon for humanity to overcome the poverty. So most of us have come from a very average or middle class families. Today we are occupying and we are contributing to the national development. It is because of our education. Okay. If you add the research, innovation, intellectual property rights to this component, to the education, then it becomes a missile. So not only it is a weapon, it becomes a missile. So that is what we all have been experienced. We are all are an examples of that kind of an opportunity what we have leveraged during all these years. So why research and innovation is important, we all know, but nevertheless, for the benefit of the continuity of the talk, I would like to mention that whatever research we are doing, whatever money we are spending in research, of course, it makes us more analytical in our mind, and it helps us to find out new solutions to the problems what we are facing. And in that process, we create a lot of entrepreneurs, we create wealth, we create employment opportunities for the society. Okay, and along with that, it also brings return on our investment. Whatever investment we are making on our research and development in our education system, it also brings some kind of a revenue or the return on investment on the research and investment what we are making. Apart from that, of late, the National Institutional Framework ranking also, the government has also realized the importance of innovation, IP and entrepreneurship startups. They also have given now, I think about 10% weightage in the NIFR rankings. So universities now have to focus on that, strengthen that capability, strengthen that functionality in the universities. If you wanted to emerge as an institute of excellence or institute of national importance. Okay, that is very, very important. And under these presumptions or circumstances, all of us, particularly the research community, the faculty members, need to understand the importance of IP and innovation. So this is the background. The structure of my presentation broadly goes to understanding some of the concepts of intellectual property rights and innovation and IP commercialization process in universities. And what are some of the best universities? We have been doing extremely well and leveraging this IP and innovation in their universities to create wealth and to create employment opportunities and to take that research to marketplace. And in that process, how NRDC is promoting IP and innovation in academia, I would like to give some examples. So this is broadly the scope of my presentation. See, if you look at university and the R&D roles, in the past, universities are only meant for giving education in the order of priority, less on research, less on knowledge dissemination. But in the current era, after as Professor Ramasamy said, after the globalization has started, the focus of the universities have changed slightly towards resource mobilization. The universities have to, we no longer should depend on the government grants or government resources. They have to raise their own resources, mobilize their own resources. And technology commercialization has become an important activity, because this also brings revenue to the universities. And collaboration with industry is very, very important. This is again ultimately leads to the creating a quality human resources, and also to establish partnerships with the industry so that we can do a good research and ultimately generate entrepreneurship. I think in the times to come, the university doesn't produce entrepreneurs, doesn't produce startup companies. I don't think they are going to be sustainable. They're going to be existing as an university, because the times are changing, the education policies are changing, the societal expectations are changing. Over and above now, we are with a COVID-19 pandemic. Because of this COVID-19 pandemic, almost all our human endeavors have come to a standstill, and we need to think differently, and we need to find out a solution for our existence, our survival, our sustainability. You see, because of this COVID, all the universities, almost I think 1.2 trillion students across the globe are now at home. The universities have closed. So now there is a need for all of us to come out with the innovative solutions, how these universities can be made sustainable, because now the trend after, I think, post-COVID, the universities, mostly I think they will be driving towards digital learning. See, right now in our system, majority is a face-to-face physical learning. But whereas I think in the time to come, the digital learning is going to take bulk of its classroom teaching, learning outcomes. I think they're going to be changed. So universities also need to think in that direction to make more of digital, less of physical or face-to-face. Of course, because there is no escape for us. If we want to sustain, that is what we need to do. We need to adapt to the technology. We need to bring the digital platforms and e-learning platforms aggressively. But it has got an impact on our research, development, innovation. See, research, development, innovation, it requires a physical presence, conducting experiments, carrying out research. So we need to see how we will be able to overcome such kind of a challenge, come out with a new ways and means strategies to still continue our research, development, and innovation. See, COVID has also given us a lot of opportunities to come out with new technologies, new solutions to leverage science, technology, innovation, and ICT platforms. Okay, these are all very, very challenging times. So it is very, very important for us to adapt to the new technology, at the same time meet the society's expectations through our education institutions. So measures of successful R&D, particularly in universities, is based on capacity to generate new knowledge. That is a fundamental thing. Technology commercialization, whatever new knowledge you are creating, it should be relevant to the industry. It should be able to meet the expectations of the common man and the governments, and social and economic benefits. So these are all the three parameters on which a successful R&D outcomes are measured. So if you look at the philosophy or the psychology or the cultures of these two things, one is university, the other one is industry. We need to coexist each other. One depends on the other. But if you look at the university culture as a whole, university generally gives highest priority for education. Of course, less priority for research, and further less compared to research in the innovation. But if you look at industry, it is upside down. Their priorities are innovation, research, and less on education. So how do we match these two situations? See, they are like, both are like water and oil. They never mix each other. But of late, particularly the Western universities have adopted a model to create such kind of a mechanism through which this oil and water can be miscible, made miscible through bringing the IPR and innovation component into them. Because ultimately what industry is required is innovation. Okay, new technologies, new products. So the universities in the West have adopted very successfully. And if you look at the universities' IP and innovation component and the kind of revenues they are generating from this portfolio is substantial. Okay. Then if you look at what is the management cycle, the IP innovation management cycle, of course, we all know it starts with research, new ideas. Then once you establish a proof of concept, develop a new technology, we disclose them in a IP language, we call a invention disclosure. And once the invention disclosure is made, and there should be a institutional mechanism also in each university to assess all these things. Once invention disclosure is made, then that has to be assessed by a competent team to find out what is the marketability, what is the opportunity available, whether it is real innovative or not. If it is qualifies all these criteria, then you will file for the intellectual property right. You will create that intellectual property. Once you have created, you need to protect it. So that is what is important. Creation of intellectual property and its protection is very, very important for higher education institutions, because the wealth of your university not only depends on the kind of human resources you are producing and sending it to the market, but also it depends on the kind of intellectual property. It is a kind of an asset, intangible asset, but which can create tangible benefits to the society. So this intellectual property is such an important aspect for any society. The society needs to be classified or categorized as an innovative society. It all comes from the intellectual property of those institutions. Okay. Once you have created intellectual property and you have protected it, the next step is in the market to find a license. So this is the next step in the value chain. Once you have created intellectual property, you need to market it to potential entrepreneurs, customers. Again, all these capabilities are not currently available in our university system. Again, it is a big challenge. So once you market this IP and found out an entrepreneur, then what you need to do is select a potential good licensee or the technology receiver. This is also very, very important, because the success of your IP, the success of your technology in the market also depends on the capability of the entrepreneur. His financial credibility, his financial strength, his domain knowledge, his passion, the team. So all these things are very, very important. We also need to understand and select a right licensee or an entrepreneur who would like to commercialize our invention. Then once you identify it, you transfer the technology by way of signing a licensing agreement. Okay, this is the next step in the value chain. The licensing agreement is again a very complex process. It involves technical, commercial, legal aspects, and one has to have a right skills, right experience to conclude this, to conclude the licensing agreements. Once you have licensed, then the entrepreneur has to establish a commercial plant and produce the product or the service and bring it to the market. That we call it as a commercialization. Then once it is commercialized, we are supposed to get the royalties on the technology. Okay. Once you get a royalties, again, it is also a complex process. Many entrepreneurs claim that we are not using your technology. What we have taken from you, your technology is not working with us. So there will be again a lot of complications in terms of technology, in terms of legal aspects. There should be capabilities built within the systems to handle such kind of challenges. So once you get a royalties, what it does with that royalty, again, you plow it back that royalties into research for developing, advancing your research, bringing out new technologies, new products. So this is a complete circle. Okay, starting from research to, that is what we call the knowledge of the wisdom represented by our goddess Saraswati. Okay, then that knowledge, that wisdom creates wealth. Okay, that represents our goddess Lakshmi. So in our research efforts, your education system, what we are trying to do is that to create that kind of a mindset, create such kind of human resources. We have got the faculty of thinking, faculty of inventing, faculty of bringing new things to the society. And there is another component in this is that the entrepreneur or the innovator who brings this product or idea into market, then which generates in that process a lot of wealth to the nations, employment opportunities. So this is such a pious and very sacred activity. The IP innovation management in any of the organizations should be treated as the highest priority, highest strategic component of any business or any academic institute. So we are going to talk about those things. Then what are intellectual property rights? You see, most of you by now, you are aware what is intellectual property or what are intellectual property rights. Government over the last, I think, 2 decades or so has created so much awareness. Government of India has also brought National Intellectual Property Act also, NPI, National Intellectual Property Law also, policy also Government of India has brought. So by implement that National Intellectual Property policy, many institutions have created arms or mechanisms to create awareness. So basically, what is intellectual property? Intellectual properties are creations of the human mind. So that is how creations of the human mind means by using our intellect. So that is why they are called intellectual property. Okay, whatever we create using our mind, they are all called intellectual property. So like any other property, this property governments across the globe have also recognized, and they said they can be treated as an assets, a class of assets. So government also gives all the protection, all the security for all these intellectual property rights, the way we get security for all our assets like a house, car, all these fixed assets. So that way, intellectual property is also a kind of asset. So these intellectual property rights are divided into 2 types. One is industrial property rights. Again, the industrial property rights, there are about 6 types of major industrial property rights. They are called patents, trademarks, industrial design, integrated circuit and semiconductors, new plant variety and farmers' rights, and geographical indicators. These 6 are the primary industrial property rights. Of course, most of the time we are going to deal today only related to IP, because mostly related to patents, because patents are given for innovations, inventions. Patents are given for inventions. We are all dealing with inventions. Mostly we will be talking about patents in today's lecture. So like that, there are different kinds of intellectual property rights. Each intellectual property is very, very important in the business world. The other category of intellectual property rights are copyrights. Basically, they are from literary works. They also come from our mind only. Books, music, films, they are all called copyright kind of a intellectual property. See, IP protection is critical for fostering the innovation and to reap the full benefits of the invention. If you have a right on that particular knowledge, so that fosters bringing the innovation to the invention to the marketplace. How it is going to help, we are going to discuss subsequently. Because these IP rights are again exclusive rights given by the governments to prevent others from using these IP for manufacturing and selling. So the exclusive rights, IP, once you got a IP granted on your name means you got a exclusive right on that knowledge. No one can use that knowledge without your permission. If somebody wanted to use that knowledge or the technology, they have to pay you a money. That is called what we call technology transfer fee or licensing fee. Okay, IPs are set of intangible assets which can create tangible wealth, employment, tangible results. So it is also legally protected. So that is why such a IP is such an important and key for our prosperity. So as I mentioned, there are the different types of intellectual property rights, what you have talked about it. Patent, trademark, copyright, design, plant varieties, geographical indicators, trade secret, integrated circuit. Trade secret is not a part of the IP, but it is dealt by a separate contract act. But all other remaining 7 intellectual properties, each one has got an act enacted by the government. So each aspect of this intellectual property rights are dealt by the legislative acts. There are acts launched by the government of India. Each one will be treated or dealt under the different acts. So if you want to get a patent particularly, so what is the criteria? So all inventions are not or cannot be patented. Only those things can be patented which meet these 3 criteria. One is the novelty. Whatever research or whatever product, whatever service you have done and found out, it should meet these 3 following criteria. One is the novelty, inventive step, industrial application. So all the research scholars, faculty members, before going for a patenting, you please evaluate whether the research result or the product or technology what you have been developing meets these three criteria or not. Okay. If you meet this criteria, you can go for a patent. So novelty means, what do you mean by novelty? Novelty means the product or the service or the process, it should be novel. It should be first of its kind. It should be different from the existing pre-art, existing state of the art. Then only we can say it is a novel. So it should be different from the existing knowledge. That is a primary condition. Then inventive step. There should be a inventive step. There should be a non-obviousness. There should be some kind of a scientific evidence through which you might have developed this process. It should not be like a magic. No, that is why they call it the inventive step should be there. So that it should be analytically, there should be logic reasoning, and there should be experimental proof to say that you have developed this technology, and there is an industrial application. Ultimately, there should be an application for this invention. Then only you will get the patent. But as a researcher, you should always remember, you will lose the novelty component once you publish it. You should not, there should not have been, someone else should not have been claimed about your invention in the past. That's what, it should not be in the public use already. Prior public knowledge also, it should not be there. So that is why, as a researcher, as a faculty member, you should remember these things. These things, if you do it before publishing, even if you talk in a conference, even if you display in an exhibition, if that is recorded somewhere, it will go against your invention. Suppose tomorrow you apply for a patent, the patent examiner, the patent office will check whether this kind of knowledge has already been available elsewhere, has already been in the public domain or not. So your own invention, your own talk or your own publication in an unimportant event will not get you patent. So that is why it is very, very important. All the research scholars, before going for a publication, please patent it, then you publish it. Okay, at least file your provision of application. You don't have to give the entire patent claims in the beginning itself. Just title of your patent, what purpose or what problem it solves. With that, you file your patent application. Then you publish it. Then you will get both patent as well as publication. But if you publish it, and there is also, of course, there is a limit. I think there is a 12 months window is there. Once you publish, within 12 months of that period, you can go for a patent. If you cross that limit, you will not get your patent because already your knowledge has been published. So what the mantra Dr. Mashelkar has given to all the scientific community in our country is that patent, publish, and prosper. So if you file a patent, you may be able to sell this patent. You may be able to license this patent. Okay, that brings you revenue. And if you publish it, thereafter, if you are in the research, if you are in a faculty, you will also get your promotions. So that is how you become prosper. So patent, publish, prosper is the mantra for research scholars. So why IP protection is essential for particularly for startups. Now we are talking about startups. Startups are the growth engines for any economy. Okay, governments across the globe have realized startups are the growth engines. So they have come out with a lot of policies to promote and support startups. So during the last 3-4 years, Government of India has given such a priority, such a focus to promote startups. A lot of funds have been created. A department has been created. As a result of all the government initiatives, India has emerged as a third largest startup ecosystem in the world now. With almost, after the policy was introduced in 2016, from that day to this day, around some 40,000 startups have been registered in our country. So every day, around 4 to 5 startups are being registered. So that is a kind of impetus, the pressure, or it has brought, the policy has brought, and India is emerging. Of course, when you say it is ecosystem, there are so many subsystems in the ecosystem. Like universities is one of the major component of the startup ecosystem or the innovation ecosystem. Okay. Then the government organization who makes the policies, who provide funding, the entrepreneurs, the startup community, entrepreneurs, innovators, regulatory authorities, even the consumers of our products. People have to, of course, they have to buy and they have to use. So the policies of the investors, the venture capitalists, the incubation centers. So all these people are called innovation ecosystem or the startup ecosystem players. So the government has to bring a policy to enthuse, to motivate, to leverage strengths of all these stakeholders. So that is how government is very aggressively pursuing this Startup India, Make India policies. As a result, India is progressing very well in these two fronts. And the benefit of having a patent for a startup is that if you have a patent, as we have discussed, you will get a competitive advantage in terms of getting exclusive rights. Once you have a patent, as per the definition of the patent, you will get 20 years exclusive right on your knowledge. No one can use that knowledge except you or with your permission. So that is the kind of a exclusive right you get if you hold a patent and start a business. So that is why it's very, very important to have a patent. And also it improves the valuation of the business. You see, once you started a company based on your patented technology, you need to raise money to scale up your business, establish a larger plant, increase your production capacity. In that case, what you do, you will go for raising money from either venture capitalists or public offers or private investors. So they all look at your business at a much higher value if there is a patent-based technology if you are using. So the company value is higher, so you can give a lesser shares of yours to the investors and get a maximum premium. That is the meaning of the valuation. Okay. So say, for example, you invested in a company, 1 lakh, if the company is valued at 10 lakhs, so to buy that 10 lakhs, you don't have to give, rather you can issue less number of shares depending upon the value. So that is the biggest advantage if you have an IP in your venture. So I am telling you all these things are that when researchers are developing technologies, you should always give focus to protect your intellectual property rights so that the investors, the entrepreneurs tomorrow when they take the technology, they will get all these benefits. And also it attracts investors to make investments and protect the investor interest. The investor interest in terms of his investment is protected if you have a patented technology in your venture because you get exclusive marketing right. It will also act as a defensive as well as offensive mechanism. See, once you are successful tomorrow in the market, many other competitors may say that you have copied my technology. They may file a suit against you. But if you have got a patent, you can always show to your competitors who are filing infringement suits against you to tell them, no, I have not copied your technology. This is my patent certificate, which was granted by government. Government always evaluates across the globe whether the technology is novel or not. Then only they give this patent certificate. So that way it helps you from the infringement claims or suits. It also provides a new revenue stream through licensing, franchising, or sale. So that's what once you have a patent, either you can license it, you sell it, or you franchise it. That is also can create another stream of income for you. IP is must for exporting products to developed economies. Particularly if you look at US and other European economies, they are such a robust economies. They don't buy any product which is not IP based, IP protected. Okay. I was the other day I was reading some article. Even the biggest e-marketplace, Amazon, they don't sell any product which is not having a brand, which is not having a trademark, which is not having a patented technology or product. So it's very, very important if you want to, because IP means it validates your product, genuinity of the product. It is not a spurious product. It is not a copied product. So that is why if you want to export, having a patent will definitely help you. And it also increases your negotiating power when you want to establish joint ventures. Okay. If you're joining with some other company or some other partner, if you have a patent or in cross licensing in joint ventures, you can always get a better terms of negotiation. So just I would like to give one example over here, the US economy and the intellectual property rights. There was a study conducted by the USPTO. Okay, in 2016, they found out, they carried out the study across 130,000 MSMEs and startups. Okay, they found out in these 135,000 companies, which are IP intensive industries, they supported 45 million high paid jobs. This is one of the advantages if you have a IP-based venture, the employees are paid higher than the normal workers because IP requires higher skills, higher knowledge. So that is why they are also paid their wages higher. So the around 30% of the US jobs have been based on the IP intensive industries. That is what the study says. And also this IPO based industries in US have contributed 6 trillions to their economy. That is almost 38.2% of the GDP of USA. And without trademark or brand registration, even Amazon doesn't sell any product. Another striking difference they found out is that startups, MSMEs, earned 32% more revenue compared to their counterparts who are not having IP-based products. So this is also another biggest motivation factor for startups to have IP in their businesses, because they can earn up to 30 to 35% more revenues compared to their counterparts who are not having IPs in their businesses. IP is a really, truly intellectual currency, helping to promote economic growth, company competitiveness, and innovation worldwide. So I think most of you who are in the technology transfer, or the IP creation, IP commercialization may be aware, but this is a general process being followed in a university, how the IP is created and how the IP is commercialized. It always starts with a scientific discovery. A scientist will discover, like Tata Narasimha Rao. He discovered or invented how nano silver or nano titania can be used for societal benefits. So the scientific discovery has come from the scientist or a research laboratory scientist or university scientist, and carried out experiments, and he has established the proof of concept. Yes, this works. Then he discloses that information to the university TTO. Generally, every university should have a technology transfer office and IP cell. This is very, very important in the knowledge economy. If you don't have that kind of a delivery mechanism in your institute, whatever research you do, it doesn't reach to the consumers, the entrepreneurs. So there should be a technology transfer office and IP cell in that university. That is very, very important. Most of the advanced economies, they have this kind of a mechanism. So once you disclose this invention to the TTO office, what they do is they evaluate this invention, whether first of all it is patentable or not, based on that criteria. If it is patentable and it has got a market potential, not all the disclosures should be filed a patent. The TTO and the IP cell has to evaluate and tell which one has got a better prospects for commercialization, and those inventions only should be protected. Otherwise, the expenses will be too huge on the university. So that is very, very strategic function. Again, the technology transfer office and IP cell should evaluate all these invention disclosures and decide which one should be protected. So accordingly, they will file the patent or whatever, depending upon the type of intellectual property what you created. It could be patent, trademark, copyright, design. So anything could be among those 7. So once you file a patent, and that university scientist and TTO will file a patent with the help of inputs from the university scientist, the TTO will draft the application or engage the patent attorneys, and they file the patent. And different patent offices of different countries have got different norms and timelines. So in India, it will take about 4 to 5 years. In US, Singapore, and other economies, it may take about 3 to 4 years. So you don't have to worry. Once you file your application, your protection will be there from the date of your filing. So many people ask question, it takes 5 years, 6 years, what is the use? But you don't have to worry, because the patent life is 20 years, and that protection you will get from the date of your filing. So once you file your application, your duty is over. You keep on doing your work. The TTO or the patent office, the patent cell will take care of the remaining activities. So once you got a patent or you file a patent, the next job is you need to market this patent or the technology to various entrepreneurs, existing companies, large companies, small companies in India or outside, wherever you want it. So the marketing again is very, very important. Okay. Generating the leads and converting the leads into business opportunities is again a big function of a TTO office. Again, across the chain, value chain, the scientists who develop this technology and the TTO office have to work in hand in glove. Then only they will be able to transfer this technology successfully. That is very, very important. So once you market it, then you transfer this technology by way of licensing agreement. That's what we have discussed in the past. Okay, once you license it, you will pay the licensing fee, and you transfer the knowledge by way of a process know-how package, or also by providing a training in your laboratory where you develop the technology and the process. So once he absorbs, understood the process, understood the quality control techniques, the specifications, and all these things, and he will give a certificate to the laboratory saying that I understood the technology, I understood the process, I'm satisfied with what they have demonstrated, what they have claimed. Then if he gives a certificate, then we call it as the technology transfer is successful. But that doesn't mean the technology is successfully commercialized. The next stage is that. So that largely depends on the entrepreneur's capabilities. That's what I mentioned. So once you are given the know-how package, you trained him in your laboratory, how to produce it, how to test it, how to validate it, and his job is to produce it in a commercial mass production. So to produce that in a mass scale, again, he has to prepare a DPR, a basic engineering package, project report, and estimate the project cost for a given capacity, how much is going to cost, and he has to also finalize the means of finance, how he is going to raise the funds, whether his own funds or banks or venture capitalists. So again, the research institute, the scientist who developed this technology also has to go along with him to convince the investors also. So then he will be, once he raises the funds, he will establish the commercial plant. And again, the scientist has to go to the commercial plant, re-standardize the process in the commercial scale, establish the process parameters, and hand over the complete plant to him. And if he satisfies whatever he said in the process know-how document or in the laboratory, what you have shown in terms of the purity, in terms of the consumption of the raw materials, in terms of the designs, if you're able to demonstrate again in the commercial plant, then we'll say that the technology is again successfully transferred at commercial scale. So the technology transfer has got two phases. One is in the laboratory phase, one is in the commercial scale. So once you have handed over the package, and if you say that he is happy, then we say that the technology transfer is successful. But again, still the technology commercialization is not successful. When we say the technology commercialization is successful, is only when he is able to produce the product or the service in large quantities, met the market needs, and able to capture the sizable market and make profits and return the loans or investments what he has borrowed, then only we will say the technology commercialization is successful. So the technology transfer is one part, technology commercialization is one part, but each one will build on the other. The technology commercialization success depends on the technology transfer as well. Okay, these are some of the basics about how technology transfer takes place. So as I mentioned to you, once you have a patent, you can, this patent either you can license it on exclusive basis or non-exclusive basis, or you can also sell it, assignment they call it. Assignment means you are selling your entire patent rights, ownership rights to the licensor. In case of licensing, the company who got license, again there are two types of exclusive license and non-exclusive license. Non-exclusive license means this technology can be given to more than one company. You are given to one company, but you can also give to more than one company. That is what we call non-exclusive. Exclusive means only one party, but the principal rights will be resting with you, but you are giving license to only one party. In case of a biotechnology, medical products, generally this exclusive license is being given because the investor, the startup, or the company who has taken this technology from you, they have to spend a lot of money subsequently to implement this technology. Because, for example, if you look at the drugs, pharmaceuticals, vaccines, it involves a lot of clinical trials. In a technology development, around 2/3 of the technology development cost goes into the clinical trials. So that is why he brings a lot of money to validate the technology, implement the technology, and such circumstances generally we consider exclusive license. Okay, so these are the two options if you have a patent. So this is how the value of a technology versus the timeline. If you see here, always start with the research. Okay, then it goes to the development. Once the technology is developed, then we transfer to an entrepreneur. Once you transfer it, there is a time lag. The entrepreneur will establish a plan, then you will produce product launch, you will do it. Once the product is launched, from there to here, if you say success as a business here in the curve, okay? From here to here, this is called a valley of death in a technology transfer, technology management language. So what is meant by valley of death? See, in the timeline and the required resources required to bring the technology to market, this is the period, this is the, under the curve, there is a kind of a valley, okay? And this valley is the most challenging thing. To overcome this valley, you need a lot of technical support, financial support. So people who are able to raise those kind of endorse that kind of technical support from the laboratory and able to raise the resources required to bring the product to market, they are successful, they are able to overcome this valley of death. Otherwise, majority of the technologies, if you look at least in NRDC, you have licensed so many technologies, around 40 to 50% of the technologies what you have licensed have fallen in this valley of death and they were never a successful ventures. Okay, so once you reach here, the success of a business here means this the top curve shows that now your revenue is increasing. So this is the point where we call as a break-even point. So break-even point in the sense, the investment what you made and the revenue what you have generated, they are at equal. That is what we call a break-even point. So up to this point, the hand-holding of the research laboratory or the university to the entrepreneur is very, very important. And the entrepreneur also should be able to get all the required financial support, the team, the regulatory approvals. So all these things are involved in this valley of death. So coming to some of the universities in the IP, this is as per the Indian Patent Office recent annual report. These are the top 10 institutions in the country. Of course, Indian Institutes of Technology, collectively, they are #1 in our country. We all know that the kind of R&D activity goes there is much better than any of these universities. Of course, it all depends on the budget and their age, all these things matters. So in Indian Institutes of Technology, all of them put together are the #1 with a 540 patent applications since 2017-18. Amity University is a private university, again appeared to be the #2. Savitha Dental University. I'm very happy to see that SRM University also is a #4 with 81 patents. So that shows the culture and it also aligns. Today's event is also because work in this area can only understand strength, respect strength, you know. So SRM University is also doing very well in terms of patent filing. It's the top, one of the top 10 universities in the country. So Indian Institute of Science, even I'm very surprised, SRM University is above the Indian Institute of Science. Then, of course, there are other colleges which are in the private sector. So these are top 10 global universities in terms of the utility patents filed, because the patents filed, we could not get it, but we got the data based on the utility patents. Utility patents are also a class of patents filed or accepted in many other countries, but in India, we don't have the provision for filing utility patents. Utility patents are like an incremental patents, you know, incremental innovations. University of California appears to be the #1 university in terms of these patent filings, followed by MIT, Harvard University, Stanford, University of Texas, Caltech, Wisconsin. Surprisingly, one Chinese university, that is Tsinghua University, is also there with 1761 patent, John Hopkins and University of Michigan. So these are all the top 10 universities across the globe, and we have seen top 10 universities in India who are #1 in patent filing. So if you look at the IP management in a Harvard University, it's very interesting. Every year, almost they file around 450 to 500 innovations they disclose, and they got filed around almost 50%. To say, as I mentioned to you, all invention disclosures need not result into a patent applications, okay? Because it involves a lot of expenses. So the patent office or the TTO office, they have to exercise this, okay? New patent applications filed almost every year, they file around 250 applications. The issued patent applications issued, almost 50% of what they file have been converted or issued as a patents. And from there, almost around another 50%, little less, have been licensed. Then the commercialization revenues and the startup companies. So this is how, whatever theory we talked about, that we have seen in the case of Harvard University, from research to innovations, innovations to patents, patents to licenses, license to commercialization of the revenue. Almost every year, now they're getting around 100 million US dollars from the commercialization of R&D outcomes. And around some 15 to 20 startup companies they are producing or generating every year. So this is also another important point based on my experience. See, this technology commercialization transfer in a university should not be seen as a business entity. See, it is a vehicle for taking your R&D to marketplace, but the majority of them are not sustainable yet. They are still depending upon the university grants. So if you look at, can we commercialize every IP? That is also not there. Like the way every patent disclosure cannot be converted as a patent application, even every IP granted also cannot be commercialized, because sometimes this patent filing helps like a patent portfolio. And a given technology, if you have a patent portfolio, it helps you to create some kind of a fence around the technology. So that is the purpose. Many people build that fence around the technology by filing more patents, but need not be commercialized all of them. So if you look at again the Stanford case, there are about 3,700 active technologies, invention disclosures, and I'm not able to see this here. But anyway, this is one of the leading university in the US, which has also generated a 49 million US dollars as a licensing revenue from the technologies in 2019. Okay, they have also generated around 24 startup companies. And another major advantage is that if you have this kind of an activity, it also brings a lot of sponsored research into the university. Okay. So I've also compiled some information to show that IP and economies are very strongly interrelated, interconnected. If you look at China and US particularly, the kind of patents they have and their economy are so robust because of the IP. For example, China, if you see, last year they filed around 15 lakh patents, and their GDP is about 14 trillion US dollars. Similarly, if you look at USA, they filed around some 6.5 lakh patents last year, and their economy is 21.4 trillions. Of course, the quality of US patents are much higher than the Chinese patent. We all know about that. That is why the US economy is also very strong. So the point I would like to drive here is that there is a strong correlation between IPRs of the nation and the GDP. So impact of university research, of course, we all know that 90% of Nobel winners in medicine are from academia. At least a third of drugs marketed by major drug companies are licensed from universities. Okay. Most of the vaccines in the past 25 to 30 years have come from university contribution. Okay. So all these drugs, whatever you are listed here, and hepatitis B vaccine, and there are many, all the blockbuster drugs are even some of the startup companies. If you look at all these companies, which are now multinationals, have also took birth in the university campuses, like Oxford Instruments, Google, Netscape, Genentech, Polaroid, Leica, Sun Microsystems, Silicon Graphics, okay, Cisco Systems, Facebook. They all took birth from the university campuses. So, how NRDC is supporting IP protection and commercialization? I would like to spend maybe another 5 minutes over here. NRDC works with all government labs and universities in the country. They are under CSIR, DRDO, ICAR, ICMR, and IITs. And all this knowledge, what has been generated there, we enter into an agreement with them, take their marketing rights, and we market them, commercialize them. And whatever money we generate out of this technology or IP commercialization, we share with the respective institutions in a mutually agreed terms and conditions. NRDC has a technology bank of around 3,000 innovative technologies. In almost all sectors, we have technologies: agriculture, biotechnology, healthcare. Okay, we license these technologies to new entrepreneurs, startups, MSMEs. Any new entrepreneur, anyone wanted to become an entrepreneur, NRDC is the best source of knowledge for them. They should approach NRDC and discuss with us, identify the technology which you are interested to commercialize or which you are interested to take it and start a venture. We've also partnered with Ministry of Defense recently. We established a intellectual property facilitation center in the ministry. Because under Ministry of Defense also, there are so many PSUs, public sector undertakings, working, producing, doing a lot of research, creating a lot of knowledge, but they do not know how to protect it, how to commercialize it. So we have established a partnership with them, and we have opened an office in the Ministry of Defense, helping all the ministry establishments, ministry company, Ministry of Defense PSUs in protecting their IPs and commercializing their IPs. We've also opened 11 university innovation facilitation centers across the country. See, this is NRDC, we launched a scheme to establish the university innovation facilitation centers. We give every year a call seeking applications based on the criteria of like patents filed by them, the research scholars, the papers published, the infrastructure they have. Okay, based on that, we select. So every year we select around 3 to 4 universities. 3 years back, we started the scheme. So far around 12 university innovation facilitation centers have been established. We fund them basically. Apart from that, we also opened 2 intellectual property facilitation centers supported by MSME. One at Visakhapatnam, now it is operating. The other one was at Bangalore. Organizing IPR awareness programs, IPR training programs across the country. Every year we organize 15-20 programs, sometimes on our own, sometimes in partnership with many government departments like DIPP, CPAM and other IPO. We organize large number of programs. Almost every month there will be 2-3 programs from us on this IPR awareness. We have also established United Nations WIPO Technical Innovation Support Center at NRDC Visakhapatnam office. This is also very prestigious. Also was the 3rd center in India. So far they've given only 3 centers. One is Anna University, one at NRDC, I think one at Chandigarh, and I think one at Jammu, Rajasthan. I think there are 3 or 4 in the country so far, and we are one of them. NRDC is also already transferred around 5,000 technologies in different sectors to MSME startups, which we have sourced from these institutions and universities. NRDC also files patents free of cost, particularly for academic institutions and startup companies. Many people are not aware. I urge all the participants, faculty members who are attending this program to leverage this benefit, get this benefit. If you have an invention, there is an application form on our website. You please fill it and send it to us. Within a month's time, we'll be able to tell you whether we will be able to file your patent or not. We are filing. So far, we filed during the last 7-8 years, around 2,000 patents we have filed in India and abroad. So this is a wonderful opportunity for researchers. You don't have to spend anything. You see, if you want to file a patent and maintain it for 20 years in India, it will cost about 4 to 5 lakhs. Okay, the entire expenses are borne by NRDC. You don't have to spend every single pie on that. So that is a benefit NRDC provides to the researchers. You can use it. As I mentioned to you, NRDC has licensed or transferred more than 5,000 technologies. Bulk of the technologies have come from CSIR labs, 44%. 29% of the technologies what we have licensed have come from DRDO, 12% from Indian Council of Agriculture, 6% from ICMR, 7% of the technologies what we have licensed have come from universities, 2% from public sector undertakings. So these are some of the successful technologies, success stories of NRDC. The indelible link, when you go for election, you know, they put the ink on our finger to identify you have voted already, you cannot vote till the next election comes. The Tink technology was licensed to NRDC. To run Mysore Paints in Mysore, they are producing this ink and not only meeting the entire India requirement, they are also exporting this ink to 28 countries. And the beautiful thing in this company is 98% of the employees are women employees in this. So such a highly technical ink, which is there almost the unbeatable, indelible ink for so many years in the market. This is NRDC license. The Amul Baby milk powder technology. Again, CFTRI Mysore has developed it. We licensed this technology to NDDB. And recently I met the CMD of NDDB. I asked him how this product doing, though we licensed it very long ago. He said, this product is doing very well. I asked him, what is the turnover of this baby food in your total balance sheet? He said around 3,000 crores of annual business is coming from this Amul baby food alone, from this, which is our technology. Then 10 and 20 HP tractors again is another good technology. CSIR, CMER, Durgapur has developed it. This technology, 20 HP tractor, initially we licensed it to Punjab tractors. Now the Punjab tractors have been acquired by Mahindra and Mahindra. and another company, Sonalika, the India International Tractors, and they are also selling in the name of brand name of Sonalika. This technology again giving around, I think, more than 2,500 crores turnover to their balance sheets from this technology. Similarly, sodium azide, artificial heart valve is again another important technology which was developed by Sri Chitra, which is a DST institute. We license this technology to TTK Healthcare. They are already introduced this valve in more than 1.5 lakh Indian patients. Now they started exporting also. Ayush 82, again another blockbuster technology of recent times. Last 2-3 years back, we licensed it. The Ministry of Ayush has developed. This is anti-diabetic herbal formulation. We licensed this technology to about 6-7 companies. We are getting very good royalty out of these technologies. Anti-arthritis herbal ointment, again a joint pain. Nowadays, everyone who has crossed 50 years, they have a joint pain. This is also another beautiful technology developed by CSAR NIST. We have licensed this technology to about 4 or 5 companies. All of them are doing very well. Remote operated vehicle, again, NIoT. Chennai has developed this technology. We licensed this technology recently to Bharat Electronics Limited and L&T. The beauty of this technology is that this remote operated vehicle go up to 6,000 meters depth in the ocean and take photographs of the bottom of the sea and sends the photographs. There are a lot of applications for Navy and other mining applications. So this is also very innovative technology. BTI larvicide, again a beautiful technology to control mosquito larvae at the larva stage itself. ICMR has developed this technology. We licensed to more than 20 companies across the country. Glycol-based antifreeze coolant, again high altitude vehicles when they climb high altitude, because of the low temperature, the diesel gets frozen. So this, if you add this glycol-based antifreeze coolant to the diesel will not freeze and you can run the vehicles even at low temperatures. Microbial quality test kit for drinking water. Again, all municipalities who are supplying water to the citizens, they use this technology. Invert sugar. Again, a fungicide, another very good technology, is a DBT funded project. We licensed to one company in Lucknow. Solar power tree, potassium humate, hydrogel, and auto dipper, rhesus particle board, blood bag. Again, the blood bag technology is also very, very important technology. Around 60% of the current Indian market blood bags are based on NRDC licenses only. Spirulina algae is another beautiful technology. Even it's been recently proved that the spirulina is a good immune booster for the COVID patients. Some people, even CFTRA has now come out with a products based on spirulina. Azadirachtin, again a biopesticide. So like that, there are thousands of technologies NRDC has licensed. Some of the university technologies what NRDC has licensed is like Annamali University, that seaweed extract technology. We licensed to more than 15 companies. University of Delhi, that nano-ocular delivery system for gene delivery. College of Pharmacy, Moga, again, topical nanofibrous ocular patch technology we licensed. Calcutta University, they developed a filter which can be used in the cigarettes to filter the para-benzosemicquinone, which is the carcinogenic component in the cigarette smoke. So this filter has been impregnated in the cigarettes and it can make the cigarette a green cigarette. University of Agriculture Sciences, Bangalore, large number of technologies of this university are licensed like jackfruit-based value-added products, ready to eat, palm beda, nata de cocoa production from microbial, fermentation of coconut water, and production of Karnataka rice hybrid. Again, this was developed by them. Tamarind dehuller and de-seeder technologies. Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, again, we have developed commercialized their technology, liquid biofertilizer technology. Govind Ballabpant University, again, animal drawn 6-in-1 relays. That is a very useful technology for the farmers. Tamil Nadu Veterinary and Animal Sciences, again, we developed transport technology for utilization of carcass. Indian Institute of Technology, again, we developed commercialized 2 technologies. One is a fruit coating. This is an organic fruit coating which enhances the shelf life of the fruit. And also recently another technology for converting mova, which is a wild flower in the forest available. Using that, you can make a beverage. So based on our experience in technology transfer, commercialization from academia and research, what we understood is that if you wanted to achieve a successful technology transfer from laboratory to industry, the researchers, the entrepreneurs, the policymakers should have clear understanding what are the critical success factors. So based on our study of in more than 750 projects, we found out these are the 10 critical factors which can lead to successful transfer of technology. So first and foremost is that whatever technology you are trying to develop or market or commercialize, you should assess the market size for that product or service. This is the most important thing, the market size. The second thing is that easy access to finance, because they're all innovative products. They are not run-of-mill kind of products or not established products. They are new products. So conventional finance will not be available for these innovations. So easy access to risk capital or a private equity fund or a government schemes is very, very important. Another important parameter is the strong IPRs. We discussed about this, why the technology should have a strong IPRs. Okay, field tested prototypes. So whatever technology we are transferring, please test the product in the field. By way of that, the risk on the entrepreneur is minimized. So this is very, very important. Field testing of the prototype. When you develop a technology, it is very, very important. Before transferring it, you test it. The prototype has to be field tested. And whatever deficiencies are there based on the feedback, you have to optimize them and incorporate them and make the prototype, functional prototype, workable, meets all the requirements. That is very, very important. See, most of the technologies which are coming from the academic, particularly based on my experience, they are not field tested. They are done in a laboratory scale and a proof of concept stage. But if you want to try to commercialize them, they will not be successful in the commercial scale. So the field testing is very, very important. NRDC has also got a funding scheme to support this kind of a development of a prototypes and its validation in the field. We have got this fund in almost every sector. The researchers can make use of it. They can go to our website and find out details about that. The techno-economic feasibility and viability is also very important. You have to establish before licensing. Performance guarantee of the technology provided is very, very important, because it's a new technology. A lot of iterations are required, a lot of support is required. If the technology doesn't work in the commercial scale, the laboratory has to give a performance guarantee, at least limited performance guarantee, so that boosts the confidence of the entrepreneurs. That is very important. The competitive price, quality of the product is very important. Who are all the competitors? You should also know that. The product meeting the user needs. Fiscal incentives by the government. In some sectors, a lot of fiscal incentives are being given. For example, the solar energy sector, a lot of benefits are being given. Now the COVID, a lot of funds are being given, as a grants. So that will help to bring the technologies to market much faster. Of course, among all these things, having a competent team across all the levels is also very, very important. So now we are in the COVID impact. So what is the impact of COVID on research and innovation? We've already discussed about this. Now we are transforming towards digital education. It has got a significant impact on research innovation, because research innovation requires a physical presence in the lab, conducting the experiments, evaluating them. So that is going to be a limiting factor now. We need to find out a solution for that. But in the globalized era, okay, in the past, technologies were freely imported at a very competitive price. So as a result, much of the product, services, technologies were imported in the past. Now, the globalization, I think, is going to be reduced. Now we are going to look inward, self-reliant India. So it is going to give us a lot of opportunities to develop indigenous technologies. So COVID has also brought that kind of an opportunity. Now that the supply chains for bulk of the product services, which are sourced in China, now most of these advanced economies, they don't want to continue that kind of a dependence on China because of this COVID pandemic. Now they are looking for opportunities to make investments, to partner, to collaborations. So India has got a great opportunity to leverage it, provided if we prepare for it. Okay, that is what is very, very important in terms of our policy, regulations, all those things, and of course our capacity to raise to the requirement. And apart from that, we have a Startup India and Make India machines. So there is a great opportunity for the research and innovation community really to contribute. And NRDC response to COVID-19, we have also given our might to address this challenge. NRDC has published a compendium of technologies developed in India for combating COVID-19. So during the last 2 months' time, all the triple helix players or the National Innovation System players, comprises of government, academia, industry, startups, regulators, they've all come together and raised to this occasion. I think it has never happened in the history in a 2 months' time, developing 200 to 300 technologies to address the COVID challenges. So this NRDC has brought out a compendium in which we have covered all the technological developments happened during the last 2 months. We've covered around 200 technologies, more than 250 technologies in this compendium. So that is what the power of Indian scientific community, when there is a challenge posed before them and they are encouraged, if they are given all the support, recognition, resources, they can show to the world our capabilities. And this compendium has been widely recognized, and we have already got around some 100 inquiries from various startup companies to exploit these technologies from this compendium. And we are also providing a funding also for this. Of course, the last date is over, 15th May. We received around some 75 proposals seeking funding to scale up these COVID-based technologies. And we have also launched an equity investment scheme for startups in which we invest up to 30 lakhs. And this is also major support we are providing. And I think coming to the last slide, barriers to the development of IP and management of in our Indian higher education institutions. See, the major challenge is that we don't recognize, or rather we have not that kind of a capacity in our systems. The culture of IP is not there. That is the biggest barrier, the lack of IP culture and capacity in universities. As I mentioned to you, we do research and publish a paper, then we leave it there. But that is not the end. Not even a 1% of the value chain we have completed. So if you wanted to really realize the outcome of the research outcomes, you need to have the complete the cycle what we have shown there. There should be capacities across that value chain components. That is not there. Lack of research infrastructure, of course, is not up to the mark. Leaving apart the IISc and IITs and few universities, poor research management is also another issue. Obsolete research topics, the lack of marketing in showcasing academic research outputs. This is also universities, they don't have that kind of a separate cells or a marketing departments to showcase whatever research breakthroughs, IPR ownership and protection issues in absence of a dedicated IPR cell or technology transfer offices. We don't have that kind of systems to really push this kind of innovations to the demand side. Supply side, we are good, but demand side, we are not that great. We need to strengthen. So the way forward for the IP and innovation management in academia, what is important is that we need to have a curriculum for research, IP and innovation. See, this is like our Indian systems, the character, your personality and are left to individuals, okay? If your parents are good and if you are fortunate to have such kind of good friends community, your character, your spiritual angle, spiritual quotient and all, they left to the individual. So the similar way, I think not much streamlining has happened in terms of the curriculum development. This is very, very important. Then the draft institute IP policy, every institute, every university should have a IP policy, IP guidelines in line with the national IPR policy. This is very, very important. So that is how we can build this culture. That is how we can create a innovative society, innovation across the communities. So establish IP and technology transfer cells is very, very important. I think SRM has got to some extent some of these components, but I think they should have a full-fledged IP and technology transfer cell, not only for SRM, but I think all major universities. There are more than, I think, 500 universities, central and state. They all need to have this kind of a mechanism, create awareness about IP amongst faculty, students, and employees, the kind of benefits, the kind of advantages, why we should own IP. And for university industry, research collaborations is very, very important. If you want to generate more IP, more innovations, and they're funded, this industry, university interface or interactions or collaborations should be key. If you look at US universities, 70% of the research funding comes from the private sector. Only they spend maybe 20 to 25%. But whereas in India, it is not so. It is exactly reverse. Okay. And as I mentioned to you, Government of India in its wisdom has created National Research Development Corporation to help the inventors across the country to protect their IP and commercialize their IP. So many people are unfortunately not aware, despite our best efforts. So every government department has got its own limitations in reaching out to the stakeholders. We too have. We have also only limited offices only at Delhi. But nevertheless, now we are in the technology era, that should not be a limitation. So make use of NRDC's capabilities, expertise, resources, so that you will be able to raise to the next level and make use of all the government schemes in promoting IP and innovation in your universities. So I would like to conclude saying that where I started, I am also ending here. So creation of knowledge is the fundamental block for creating any wealthy, healthy society. So we need to focus, give priority for creation of knowledge. Of course, that is through academics, through education, through innovation, through research. Of course, we call them as intellectual property right, whatever we create there. So use that knowledge to create wealth, because it is a catalyst. And once you create wealth, that wealth again, it should be plowed back to education and research. So as long as there is an equilibrium between these two forces, the nations, the people, they will be at peace, they will be at harmony, they will be at healthy, happy. So there is a need for maintaining an equilibrium between these two forces in any society, so that the society, the nation, the world becomes a beautiful place to live and sustain. Thank you very much. If there are any specific questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. And thank you all for your patient hearing.
Thank you so much for wonderful and informative talk, sir. Just pouring the idea which we are looking for a long time. I think many of us will get out of many things which you have been telling. So I got so much information. So thank you, sir. It's very, 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 very useful for us. Now it is open for discussion. I the participants in the audience, please raise your hands and ask the question. Sujit, can you please allow the Dr. Sadish Kumar? So there is one general question, sir. So collaboration with industries, sir, we especially university level people, so we never go for the collaboration. So there is a gap between, that's what our Dr. T. Narasimha Rao also correctly pointed out, that valley is always there, sir. He also said how we can fill the valley between the university and industry. So the venture type of business which we don't have in the universities, sir. First to fill up the gap between the universities and industries, sir. How we can go to the industry level.
It all depends on the quality of researchers what we have there. See, the basic investment is that you should have a quality people.
Yes, sir.
Experienced people, quality people. Have some chairs, industry chairs.
Okay.
So that is how, and the managements also should attract that kind of a talent. Then industry will be able to get convinced.
Okay.
See, Dr. Tata is very good at it. He was able to all the time industry reaches him, and he keeps himself engaged with industry. That is how the faculty interest also should be there. And of course, to get that kind of attention, your contributions, your peer-reviewed publications, your patents, they all will help you.
Much patents. I think even last week, Dr. Ramakumar from IOCL also, he also told about the patent. Yeah. They have more than 1,500 patents, but he himself has more than 285.
Yes,
Out of that, 50% from US patents. So they have been doing wonderfully well.
Yeah.
But university takes some time for us to get more patents and move to industrial level. Sometimes we need money, sir, to get also. I'm telling other way also. To get knowledge also we need money.
See, my experience, in my opinion, there is no depth of money in our system.
Yes, sir.
We don't get good proposals. We have tons of money in the central government.
Okay,
we don't
sir.
get good proposals. Every year we return 30-40% of our grants what we receive.
Okay.
So that is what there should be an understanding. The ecosystem, the faculty, the researchers should very well understand the kind of policies of government, the schemes of government. There is a need for such kind of even awareness programs, workshops, how to write a proposal. Okay,
yes,
what are all the grants available in the country? So you invite some experts from various departments and conduct such kind of programs in your university.
Yes, sir. We will invite you soon, sir. Once the lockdown period is over, please visit us, sir. Then you give a talk to our people. Maybe many people know how to do research in this collaboration with the industry also and get the fund from you. So
Yeah.
many people may not aware about these things. So they're just busy with academic things.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
few research also may not aware of all these things.
Yeah.
So now we got a lot of information from you. I think hereafter they will approach you. So I think.
Yeah, sure. And also, a lot of funds are available for setting up incubation centers.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Incubation center is a really an intermediary phase or an institutional mechanism
Yes,
which
sir.
converts your ideas into technologies and entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So SRM being a very progressive university, you should have incubation center in all your university campuses.
We have an incubation center also, sir. Innovation incubation center is there.
In
There are
each
few
campus.
students are working.
So at least, see, you may not be able to be successful in your first attempt, second attempt, but you are able to create that kind of a culture in the students.
Yes, sir.
That is very, very important.
Yes, sir. But the maintaining patent also another big issue, sir.
Yeah.
Getting patent is no problem, but maintaining international patent, if they do not have commercial value,
Yeah.
how can you also answer for those things? Sir? But it became big burden for university like that.
Yeah, that's
The
what we
future to maintain it.
Yeah, we do that. NRDC, once we file a patent, we also maintain it.
Yes, sir. For 10 years, I think you must maintain it.
We maintain it for full year, and we also help you to commercialize also. Not only maintain it,
Okay.
commercialize it, you get revenue. So from that revenue, it becomes easy for anyone to maintain the portfolio.
But it takes long time, so once you file, patent gets approved, it takes minimum 2 years. So is it possible to reduce the time bound? Sir?
Yeah, that is Government of India is trying. You see, we don't have a number of examiners.
Yes, sir.
So recently they recruited about 400, 500 examiners. They are at various stages of training. So anyway, that is as I mentioned to you, you don't have to worry about the patent granting.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So once you file your application, your job is over. If patent is take it for granted, it is going to be done.
There is a speed miss. Fast track examination also you have to pay some money, so that can be done fast if you are in a hurry also. That we keep doing sometimes.
So fast the system is there. So,
Yeah.
So R.K. Dhawan is for us. The R.K. Dhawan you may know, sir. He's from Pune.
Yeah.
So they are taking care of the SI patent. They are helping us. If we go through
NRDC, Dr. Purushottam, NRDC helps in forming Section 8 companies. If we want to put NRDC fund it.
Yeah, we don't. I think.
Or they don't for government institutes.
Yeah. For CSR labs, we are doing it now.
They're doing.
With the NIL, we are going to open a Section 8 company along with a private entrepreneur. That is.
And also to help SRM, sometimes it's called provisional patent. Suppose right now we are doing on one of the products for COVID-19. We have an idea and we are sure that that idea is very innovative, but we don't want to talk to any company unless even the idea, because we want to develop the product in collaboration with the company, but we want to own that IP. So what we are doing is we are putting a provisional patent, some without any claims.
Yeah.
But the NRDC doesn't fund that kind of provisional, right? NRDC will see that it should have high potential for commercialization. Then only you will do that.
That is what. But we file both provisional as well complete.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. But only thing is we do it free of cost for universities, not for
the institutes. Of course, right.
If it is a startup, again, we do it free of cost for startup.
Okay. Very nice.
Do you have any set of rules of sharing the money, sir, between the inventors and the company people?
Yeah, there are. Each institute has got a rule, but if we have seen...
We have a separate thing for SRM 3070.
Yeah, see, if you look at the average thumb rule...
Yes, sir.
Around some 60 to 70% of the money goes to the inventor and the inventor's team.
Okay.
Yeah, the remaining goes to the institute.
Okay.
So each institute has to form its own policy.
Okay. So there is no
the policies are available in IITs and other institutions. So the policies are available. You can adopt some of their policies.
There is no hard and fast. Individual can make the fund. There is Sujit.
Can I
please
ask
allow
a question?
Sadish
Hello?
Kumar,
Can
can
I
you
ask
please?
a question? I'm
Yes, sir.
Chand. My name is
Hello?
Chand.
Yes, sir, please. Sadish sir, first he is waiting for long.
Please
Please allow
Hello?
Sadish Kumar sir to ask. Then followed by Dr.
Chand.
Chand.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir, please, sir, please.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the robust information about IP commercialization and patents, sir. Myself, Dr. Satish Kumar, so working on herbal related works, and I am doing clinical research on herbal products.
Yes.
So we have published with one patent on diabetes. Like NRDC is supporting private university for marketing that one, sir, or helping for commercialization of that particular patent.
Yes, definitely we can do that. We have been doing it.
If so, we'll come to you, sir. And sir, is it possible for a private university to work with the particular ministry? Suppose if I am with the background of Ayush, so is it possible to work with Ministry of Ayush for bringing up the product, sir?
Yeah, if you have that kind of a competencies which can complement the ministry's efforts.
Okay.
Definitely can work with one of the labs of Ayush Ministry like CCRAS, which works on all these herbal products.
Okay, sir.
But the only thing is you need to clearly differentiate what is the value you are bringing or what kind of support you need.
So what we are feeling is that we are developing a instrument, whether we can transfer that patent instrument to the Ministry of Ayush so that it will become national asset.
You transfer it to NRDC. NRDC holds the national assets in relation to all the inventions.
Okay, sir. Okay.
We commercialize it. All the knowledge, all the documentation, you keep it with you. You only educate us what are its unique features and how it can help the researchers. In a small brief write-up. Then we will contact various entrepreneurs.
Okay, sir.
Who can really exploit this commercially. So once we find out some customer, then you can transfer all your knowledge, experience to him.
Yes,
and,
sir. Yes, sir.
Decide also how much fees we should collect from him as a technology transfer fee.
Yes, sir.
We can share with you also that part of it.
Yes, sir. And one more question, we can publish from the, once it gets patent get published, no, sir, before granting, we can publish in the, we can publish the papers, or only after granting of the patent, we should publish the papers.
No, you don't have to wait till publishing. Once you file your application,
PPA we can provisional patent application.
Not provisional, complete. TN can.
Complete. Okay, sir.
Once you file patent, the date of filing patent is good enough. Then next day you can publish the paper. You can file it, send it for publication.
But the one that said, even after publishing within 1 year, we can be able to file the patent. So that's what they have been telling.
Within 1 year you can do that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
I think we'll approach Dr. Sadish.
Yes, sir. We will approach you soon, sir.
Yes, sir. Dr. Sadish from the Ayurvedic, he has been developing a lot of medicines, sir. And he also studying with the rest of the people. Maybe we'll approach soon, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now let us go with Dr. K.K. Chand.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Dr. Purushottam. I'm Chand this side. I'm really glad to see you over here where you have given a very comprehensive presentation on IPR, its commercialization, and its totally you have given all areas how if one is going for IPR, how NRDC is going to help them and get the IPR. I'm really impressed the way you have given the presentation. And just a layman's question I would like to ask you. From your presentation, I have seen from a slide where I found that the patents filed versus patents granted, where you have taken some US, China, Germany, Japan, and India. I found US filing about 6 lakh patents and getting granted about 3 lakh, which is 50%. Similarly, you have Japan at the highest level where 3 lakh they filed and 2 lakh. Yeah, Chand, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, Chand.
Connection problem, huh?
Connection problem. Then we go with, I think he's connected only. I think we'll take another question from Bhaskaran.
Yeah.
Later we can
Yeah, sure.
answer to Dr. Chand. Dr. Bhaskaran, sir? Dr. Bhaskaran? Dr. Bhaskaran, are you available? Sujit?
Yes, sir. I have unmuted.
Yes, but I suddenly disappeared.
Yeah.
He is from the Tamil Nadu state government, right? He is a joint director for industrial sector. Where is he now? Suddenly disappeared. Yeah. If there are no more questions, maybe
No,
you
no,
can
there is one question from another scientist sitting next to me. Just I'm turning.
Yes, yes, sure, sir, sure.
You can see she is Dr. Sarada. Can you see her?
For the funding and some promote the startups.
See, our NRDC help is in several ways. One is that first of all, we can patent is not filed, we can file a patent free of cost for you. Okay. The second thing is we can provide funding. Okay, from NRDC, or we can connect you to various venture funding institutions. Okay, if any regulatory approvals are required, we can also help you in getting those regulatory approvals. We can also help you in getting registered with the DIPP. All the startups have to register with the DIPP portal, Startup India portal. Unless you register there, you will not be able to access to many of the Government of India scheme benefits. For example, they give tax benefit. If you register with Startup India portal, and if there is, and that all the applications which are uploaded or registered with DIPP, Startup India portal, all the applications comes to NRDC for evaluation, for getting the tax benefit. So startup which has got a innovation in that, they will get tax benefit. They don't have to pay tax on their income. Okay. For that, Government of India has given that responsibility to NRDC to evaluate whether there is an innovation in the startup or not. We only evaluate and give the recommendations to Government of India, and based on our recommendation, the startup gets the tax benefit, 100% tax exemption. Okay. Then, if you need any market access, somewhere in government's programs, your product fits, you can also write to various government departments. Here, this is the Government of India funded project innovation. You please give a preferential treatment to them. So all the mentoring also we provide across the technology. There is some problem in the technology, you're not able to solve it. So we can also connect to various mentors, various funding agencies, various regulatory bodies. So our job is to make and see to that the entrepreneur is successful ultimately in his journey, whatever problems he has got. So that is the very broad mandate of NRDC.
Okay, very nice. Okay.
We can connect you to incubation centers. We are also managing Indian Oil Corporation Startup Fund. Indian Oil Corporation, Dr. Ram Kumar, he has created a fund in Indian Oil Corporation to promote startups in Indian Oil Corporation. The entire fund is being managed by NRDC. So managed in the sense, we are also part of identifying the startup companies, evaluating them, and once they are selected, we handhold them almost for up to 3 years. They can incubate their technologies across the country in different incubators or in their own premises. We provide, regularly monitor, visit them, see what kind of problems they are facing and what kind of help they require and what are the milestones have been agreed to receive this grant. So we monitor that. Once they fulfill that milestones, we only release that money to those startup companies. So far, IOCL has given 2 calls. In 2 calls, each call has been remarked about 30 crores. 60 crores we've already spent on these startup companies. 24 startups we've already identified, and we are mentoring, hand-holding, and helping them to mature the product. Once the product is matured and it has been accepted by IOCL, IOCL will take a call on that, whether to buy the IP or to become a partner as a JV in that, or leave them. If it is not meeting their requirements, then also give free hand to the startup company. You do whatever you want. We are saying bye-bye. So that is the kind of arrangement IOCL has created in that fund. In that fund, we are partners.
There is another person is waiting, Dr. Kumaran Durai. Sir, please you can ask.
Hello, sir.
Dr. Kumaran is now.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, yes.
Sir, like, like I said, like based on the innovation, when the patent will be processed, like how will you quantify the innovation component?
Yeah, good question you asked. The government has also given a definition to us to say whether there is an innovation in that or not. We also ask the same question to government. How should we assess the innovation content or the quotient in the proposal? So what government told us is that the product or the service which is coming out of the startup company should be first of its kind in the world. That is the first definition. Okay. A product and service which is coming out of your startup should be first of its kind in the world. Then only you get all these benefits. But all the startup companies have made a hue and cry before the government, saying that your standard is too high, too rigid. So there is a demand for our products and services in the market. Because of that, your criteria, we are not able to get benefit from your schemes. The government also said, yes, you are right. Then they also brought down the definition of innovation, saying that it need not be first of its kind in the world, at least it should be first of its kind in India. So we evaluate the proposal, whatever product or whatever service the startup is trying to create, we evaluate that whether similar kind of product or a product or service with similar features are there in the market or not. So based on that, we say that yes, this is the first of its kind, or we may say that this may not be first of its kind, but the features of the following features are different, are better than the product. Are you clear?
Hello. Hello.
Dr. Kumaran?
Hello.
Are you clear? Are you clear?
Hello.
Yes.
Clear for you, sir. Is it audible? Can you hear?
Yeah, can I speak now? Actually, yes, I lost my power. That's why I could not speak. Suddenly, abruptly, it went off my power. This is Chand.
Okay, sir. You can continue.
Yeah. Dr. Purushottam, sorry, yes, there was an interruption of power. And now I'm continuing my question there. I found that India has about 50,000 patents filed, and you know, those which were granted are only about 14,000. Right. Which is what I'm saying is a lot of gap between, for example, China had filed about 15 lakhs to about 5 lakhs. They got one third. Right. So, so I find there's a very wide gap, and at least filing should increase in order to get them granted.
That is true. As I mentioned to you, we have a limited examiners. Now the government has realized, because of a lot of pressure was there from various stakeholders, now they recruited around 350 examiners. So compared to a few years back, 3-4 years back, now the time scale has come down, and there is also record. Within 18 months or so, some patents have been granted in some domains. It is increasing. Now it is better. Compared to previous days, it is better, but still government is trying to speed up and reduce the time, and there are some statutory limitations are there. That is why it's taking time, but it is improving. But as I mentioned to you, granting is not that you don't have to worry. Once you file your application, your protection is from that date for a period of 20 years.
That's not the filing itself is so low. 50,000 versus 15 lakhs of China. There's a wide gap about.
It's a very good question you have raised. It's a very good question you have raised. See, our Indian patenting system is one of the very robust. In countries like China and US, they also allow filing utility patents. Utility patents are nothing but a little incremental innovation is there. It need not be novel. It need not be that inventive step. But if it has got some improvement, if there is a utility for that, they allow file patenting there. So because of that utility patents, their number is high, and also the country to country it varies. That is why our Indian system, US always cries against Indian IP regime, is that ours is very solid, very rigid. We don't accept incremental innovations and evergreening of the patents, Otherwise, there is no possibility of bringing innovations to the market, better innovations. So that is why in our country, we don't have a policy for filing that utility patents. Also, our process is also very rigid, very strong. That is why our number of patents are less.
I agree with you very much, Dr. Purushottam. It's very good point you have given me. But what I'm saying is that if they are filing in that manner, why not we also take that advantage and go for it? Why we have to restrict ourselves? So that we can also get, for example, I'll tell you, in solar system, when we go for advancement of technology, that is value addition into whatever existing, that becomes again a patent when it gets advantage of the system, isn't it? It's only a doubt I'm asking you, whether that can be considered into a patent, because I'm getting an advantage over by making the technology advancement. Is it so?
Yeah, that is what is a national policy. For example, that is why the US always cries, you have a compulsory license, you have this thing, evergreening of patents is not allowed. I think this needs to be, discussed a little bit higher level of intellectuals.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Last question from Mr. Manidas. Jitu Manidas, please. Hello. Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
So it's not audible. Can you speak loudly?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Yes, you asked the question.
Sir, it has been a great opportunity to listen to Purushottam, sir. And thanks to SRM. So my question is, can an individual take technology from NRDC and start his startup kind of?
Yes, that is our job. That is our job. We have licensed more than 5,000 technologies to many first generation entrepreneurs.
Okay, sir. And does that also include some financial advantage, like any financial grant or something like that?
You see, individual also, after all, he has to again create a company. Individual cannot practice on his name. If you wanted to get all the benefits, tax regimes, and all these things, you have to ultimately register as a private limited company, partnership company, or there are different legal entities are there. You have to be one of them. You have to register as a company finally. So once you have a legal entity, then you will get all the benefits whatever government provides.
Okay, sir.
Subject to fulfilling that criteria, eligibility criteria.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Through MSME, how much money you can award? Maximum, sir. You will sanction through MSME. How much one can get the money, sir? Loan from the government? Few crores, or?
No, see, it depends
is
upon
there any limits, sir?
No, it depends on the project requirement, depending upon the project cost. There are some funding norms, See, you establish your company, say it requires 10 crores.
Yes,
As per the government norms, 25 to 30% of that project cost has to be brought by the promoters.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Remaining 70 to 75% only you can raise from other sources.
Okay.
That 70 to 75% you can raise from wherever you can raise.
Okay.
There's no restriction on that. If you are taking it from a government grants or government funding, your interest burden will be less for you.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
But you are also giving 20% subsidy, right, sir?
No, we don't, based on that, we don't give. We give only up to 25 to 30 lakhs as a fixed amount for us.
Okay.
In our companies, we invest around some in that range.
Okay.
Our money should not be seen as an investment or capital investment in that fashion. See, ours is like some kind of a catalyst.
Understand.
If government is giving a technology and government is investing, So that enhances your credibility of the company when they go out.
Okay, sir. Okay.
That is the purpose of our participation. We validate
Okay.
the technology before we invest.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
this technology is a novel technology. This has got a potential. So
Okay.
that endorses our commitment, our investment endorses the validity of your technology and the
Okay.
market potential
Okay.
and the promoters' capabilities.
Interesting.
So based on that, you can raise more funds from the market.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think what I want is, I think Dr. Bhaskar is waiting for a long time. Mr. Bhaskaran, sir? Dr. Bhaskaran? I think some problem from your side. We cannot able to hear you. Hello, Bhaskaran, sir. I think he's chatting. Hello? Dr. Bhaskaran? I think it's coming. Hello?
I have to go for next webinar.
Okay, sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. I would like to thank, first of all, Dr. Narasimha Rao for introducing you, the eminent person we never expected. Thank you so much, sir, for joining with us and spending valuable time, your time. And I think we got enlightened by your talk. We got so much information. I think we now a little bit clear. We did not know most of the thing. Now may I request our director of research to propose one of thing, and then
You are from Chennai campus, Napoleon?
Yes, I am from Chennai. Right now, I am not in Chennai, but I am from Chennai campus.
Okay. You have also in Amaravati also you have a campus, na?
Yes, yes, we have a separate SRM University, Amaravati.
Amaravati, yeah.
This is mother institution.
That is a state private university.
Yes, sir.
Andhra started several state private universities, so ours is one. Almost all the Madras-based, or I'm sorry, Chennai-based private universities have one branch there. It is all
okay. Who is the VC, sir, now in Amaravati?
Sir, we have not appointed. They have selected one person. There was one American with us. He resigned in January. We have selected the vice chancellor. We are not. He has not joined.
Okay.
But Pro Vice Chancellor is our Narayan Rao, sir. Previously, he was
Dean Narayan Rao.
Yes.
Dean Rao.
I know.
So he is taking care of us.
On behalf of the SRM IST faculty members and student friends, we sincerely thank our chairman and managing director, NRDC, for sparing 2 full hours with us, answering all the queries raised. And stepwise, he has indicated what is innovation, how to patent, how to protect the patent, how to transfer the patent, and he has requested every university to go for a patent cell and technology transfer cell. These 2 things are too high for the universities now. Most of the central government-based institutions and state government institutions have entrepreneur cell, supported by either DST or state government. So they are also generating very good income for the centrally sponsored or state sponsored product development and technology transfer. This is the difficulty with the private universities. Now that having gone for patenting system, definitely we will partner with NRDC.
Yes, sir.
And then we will develop both innovation and then technology transfer. Because once we go for innovation, then definitely we will have many patents. The one difficulty with us is that we are not connected with the industries. We will first develop a get together of industries, whether it is a PICI or CII, we will work with them, and then we will go for the demand driven innovation. Then only it will be technology transfer will be fruitful with industries. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing your time and giving a very thought provoking and information oriented lecture, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, sir. We'll meet some other time, sir.
Yes,
Either here and sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
You please invite him.
Yes, sir.